It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, I put together my list for 2022, predictions for 2022. Folks, when I'm putting this thing together, I started realizing to myself, these are really just titles to future episodes of the end of the day with Ray. So stick around all 22. We're going to talk about all these things in more depth. But today, 2022 is going to show up in a few days, and I just thought I'd throw this list together and share with the community that I love, those folks that sell, supply, and service print equipment, how I see 2022 kind of panning out. So without any further ado, let's just jump up on the Sharp Interactive board. The first thing I'm going to tell you all is that your end users are going to find new sellers. And I say that meaning this. As the end users, what do they use you for? Your end users in the print equipment services industry use you because they need you to achieve their desired outcome, which is content on a sheet of paper. Or taking content that's on a sheet of paper and putting it inside the digital world through scanning apparatus, right? That's what they need you for. If they didn't print and they didn't scan, they wouldn't need you. I had to pause for a second because more and more of your customers are realizing they don't need you. Doesn't mean you're going away tomorrow, but it means that your end users today are talking to new sellers, and those sellers are going to help them achieve their desired outcome of doing things with content, consuming content. And that consumption might be staying behind glass. Print OEMs will get deeply involved with private equity. Folks, do you realize that we got OEMs out there right now that are owned by private equity? Our friends at Lexmark, PAG, big ownership in that. Toshiba and Ricoh have the same private equity owning chunks of them. Private equity getting into the OEM space is pretty damn interesting, and I'm doing a separate episode on that tomorrow. So tune into tomorrow's episode. Private equity buys up some OEMs. I think it's going to be interesting. Eliminate direct operations. OEMs are going to eliminate direct operations, folks. I've been talking about this for a while. Konica, Canon, Ricoh, they got to eliminate the direct operations or completely change their thinking on what they're doing with them. Maybe as private equity comes in and gobbles up the OEMs, that direction will be given. OEMs will increase distributor relationships. Folks, this is an extremely important one. Do you have friends that work at TD Synnex? Do you have friends that work over at Ingram Micro? Look at their profiles on LinkedIn. What do you see? It'll say something like Bill Smith, HP/TD Synnex. Alice Smith, Dell/Ingram Micro. Folks, I believe that the OEMs and the software developers are going to go to these distributors and say, help us get our products to the end user. Where before the relationship was, help us get our products to the resellers who then get them to the end user. The OEMs and the software developers aren't going to care how the product gets to the end user. They're just going to tell the distributors to get the product to the end user. This is a big deal. And we need to pay attention to it. I know a lot of y'all hear this rhetoric about how the channel is so important to the OEMs. The OEMs are the ones that say it most of the time. We love the channel. We love the channel. We're never going to leave the channel. What we have to do is decide how the channel itself is going to be reinvented. It could still be called the channel in 2025, but it might look a whole lot different. I believe as OEMs and software developers build their relationships up with distributors, well, I think the distributors might control the birth of the end user agreement. And the channel could be maintainers of an agreement somebody else gave birth to. Somebody else decides when it dies. Doesn't mean you can't make money as a maintainer, but it does mean things change in the channel. Major entities will deepen and broaden their capabilities. I've talked about this before. The folks over at AT&T selling ISP services, selling telephony services. Now they're bought a company called Alien Vault. We all remember that story, right? They're getting into RMM capability, IT security capability. When will AT&T be delivering some kind of IT services with equipment through some kind of relationship with a distributor where the reseller is just the maintainer of the agreement? Those days are coming, folks. They're coming fast. Look what Salesforce has been getting involved in. You got Microsoft out there buying up RMM companies. Will the channel of resellers be maintainers of what other people sold? Smaller leasing companies will begin facing major challenges as the as-a-service model gains more momentum. Folks, I find it so interesting that in the document imaging channel, we're seeing new leasing companies show up, and they're smaller leasing companies, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? Well, the reason they're showing up is because the more innovative leasing companies, the leasing companies like my friends, for instance, at DLL, the most innovative leasing company out there, who's selling things through consumption models. They've been doing as a service for a long time. They're the money behind major players. We see people like TD SYNNEX building their own financing arm. Are these littler leasing companies going to be able to survive? And in the meantime, they're going to come into the document imaging channel because they're going to participate in the practices that are outdated as the innovative leasing companies go past what's outdated. Do you see how that makes sense? Hey, sign up with us. I know the folks over at DLL or XYZ or whatever company you're doing financing with, they're getting a little bit more complicated, and you still want to overspec and oversell A3. You still want to put people on a 5-year lease that you go prematurely upgrade. We're the leasing company for that. Think about it, folks, because we don't need any more leasing companies inside the print sector. We need dealers to understand that the way their customers finance equipment is rapidly changing, and it has nothing to do with 1980. The industry's investors will begin demanding a definition of life past print from everybody. Private equity is going to start demanding it. Do you remember when Ricoh announced that they were going to do some things to prepare themselves for the day that print wasn't important to the end users? Something like that. Their stock went up a tremendous amount. It was plattered all over Wall Street. What a fantastic thing. Ricoh, print's not important to them. They're moving into the future. Then they had to run around and tell me they made a mistake. I've joked about this before. I've talked about this in other videos, but that proves that investors want to know what else you can do. You know where Ricoh's stock is today? It's barely above where it was before all that hype caused it to go up. It came back down. I believe the reason it came back down is because the investors want more than just talk. They want to know exactly how you're going to do it. And more investors are going to be asking those questions. One of the reasons that I'm a bear, if you will, on HP. They don't really have anything else to offer besides print and compute equipment, two damn commodities without any kind of services base. Investors, stockholders are going to start asking different questions. Major development with private equity in the dealer roll-up space. Folks, this is going to be tough to hear, but I believe we're going to go from a growth mentality to a financial engineering mentality inside the private equity of the mega roll-ups. And here's what I mean by that. You know, when those roll-ups started out, and a lot of these folks are in their 4th and 5th year, they don't want to be in their 4th or 5th year. They wanted to exit. They wanted to make their money. And here we are lingering into maybe the 6th year for some of them. And so they have to decide, what are we going to do? Do we want to financial engineer, in other words, cut all the costs we possibly can and make as much money out of this thing and milk the cow till there's no more milk? That is a business strategy, by the way, folks. It's real. We can all argue whether it's right or wrong, but if the industry's declining and the industry can't diversify and they can't put anything else in those end users' offices, the next best strategy is to make as much money off that investment as they possibly can. And that's done through financial engineering, leverage lending, all kinds of things they can do. Do we really think they're going to start investing more for growth in print? They're going to go buying up more print serial numbers, more equipment that declines every day without some clear path as to how the hell they're going to make more money in those accounts? They're going to start asking some tough damn questions. Xerox will begin to clearly define their 4 entities. They got the software, the innovation, the finance, and the print business, folks. They're going to start defining these. I've been a really big fan of Care AR, their augmented reality platform. That's its own separate business. I mean, there's so many things you could think about and dream about how that could work, right? You could imagine all kinds of possibilities with that. That represents like 1% of Xerox's revenue. The upside of that potential is huge. Their finance business, their print business. I keep saying Xerox isn't an OEM. They're the largest dealer in the world that can sell, supply, and service anything they want. The question is, what will they want? What will their investors be asking of them? I assure you, they're going to be asking some questions. Dealers must gain complete control of cost and shift dollars towards reinvention, or they themselves can milk the cow till the cow's dead. Folks, that is a strategy. You know, I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, a lot of these dealers, they just seem like they don't care. It's not that they don't care, they're not going to grow it. They're going to make money off the decline. That's a business strategy. Let's start cutting as many costs as we can. You know, let's cut cost. Those that want to change the game and reinvent themselves, they still have to cut their cost. They have to cut their cost drastically and shift those dollars to their reinvention. But either way, they know they're not going to get it 10 times EBITDA. So even if they want to sell, the best thing they can do is cut their damn cost, increase that EBITDA, so when they get 2.5 or 3 times, it's a lot of money. Because they're not going to get it any other way if it's just about print. We all know that. So ladies and gentlemen, those are my predictions for 2022. I believe it's all around the money. It's all around the investors. Because the end users have already decided every single day they're going to print less than they did the day before. And the industry has to respond to its end users. And when it doesn't, it in fact does get disrupted to the point it can't come back from. So I'm going to end my video like I always do. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.